Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with Micah Richards, Alan Shearer and me, Gary Lineker. It's been a typically exciting weekend of Premier League football and there's lots for us to discuss and get our teeth into today. Blimey, more pain for Man United fans, but really great result for Tottenham.
They were up for it more than Man United were. They started really well. They were the better team. And I thought Man United were shambolic. I thought they were awful. Thought they were lucky to get away with 3. It was a harsh sending off, I thought. But
I thought that as well. I thought it was one that a yellow probably would have sufficed.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because he slipped a bit and he stuck his leg out. But it wasn't like reckless or particularly dangerous, I didn't think.
I didn't think it was a red card, though. It was really harsh. But having said that, they didn't deserve anything. They were awful.
I agree. I thought it was a yellow card. He tried to stop the play, didn't he? But he slipped. And then, on the first angle, it looked really bad, didn't it? The sort of way, the pace of it. And it looked like he got him high above the knee area. But when you saw on the replay, he got him on his shin pad. So I think a yellow card was the right decision on that.
Again, how many times have we said, what is their plan? What is their way of playing? Is there a press? What triggers the press? Not really. Are they just a counter-attacking side? They were found wanting in every department.
Again, what are they? Can anyone tell me what are Man United? What is their system? What is their plan? Do they sit? Do they attack? Do they press? Do they... I don't know. I haven't got a clue what they are. I mean, yeah, they're a mess.
Inconsistent, aren't they? I think when we try and analyse games, because it's easy to come on here and say...
Inconsistent. They're 12th in the league. That means they're not inconsistent. That means they're bloody awful.
That means they're consistently not very good.
Yeah, but it's early doors. I thought at the start of the season there were good signs of them having a system. Not a system that we would like, if we're being totally honest. Talking about Man United of old, you want them on the front foot and high press and nice attacking football. But compared to a little bit last season, and especially when they won the FA Cup, you saw signs of little bits and pieces that this season are they going to put it all together. And then you watch the games and you're like, what is it that they're trying to do? What is a trigger to press? Who's going to play in what position? They're just a team full of individuals. And normally you would look and say the players have to do a lot better, and they do. But I think this time now we have to be looking at the manager and saying, okay, what is the game plan? What is the game plan against any team? Because the results this season, and not even just the results, the performances this season have been below par.
Well, he said it himself after their performance in Europe this week. He questioned his players' attitude in terms of who wants it more, the other team or them. They were his words, not mine. And then the game after, you're beaten convincingly 3-0 at home. So doesn't that tell you where they are and what they are? They're a mess.
How much do you think this is down to the management, to the coaching side of things? I mean, and how much responsibility should the players take? Yeah,
the players have to take responsibility. I mean, they can't hide behind the manager. The manager takes all the flack every single week whenever a result goes against them. But there's players out there who you have to think, come on, is that the best you can give? But when you look at what they gave in the cup final, and then what went on in the summer with them interviewing other managers, they've left them in an impossible position.
I mean, it must be pretty grim being a Manchester United fan at the moment, particularly after all the success that they had for such a long time over, about 2 decades. And then suddenly to go through this, and it's almost as though it's getting gradually worse. And I think at the start of the season in our predictions, none of us envisaged them actually getting much better. But you look at other teams, even teams, like Bournemouth or Brighton, you can see the way they play. You can see that the organisation, the planning, the high press, the same with Tottenham. So they were brilliant today. But we all know they play that kind of risk and reward style of football that Ange Postecoglou plays. But they've got an identity in their style of play. And I you look at Manchester United, and 1 week they'll try and press a little bit, and then another week they'll play like sit deep and try and counter. You know, they always seem to lose the midfield battle, I think, in most games that they play. And like Mike said, they tend to rely on an individual bit of magic, maybe from Bruno or someone like that. But they're miles off it.
But Gaz, when you play, there's nothing wrong. If Ten Hag says, forget what the critics say, forget what the pundits say, forget what the journalists say, I don't care. Yeah. I'm going to be a counter-attacking team. This is how I want to set up. And at times, Man United go into the low block, mid block or low block. But you can't play a low block or a mid block and get through the midfield so easily. I don't understand how that is possible. So you've got Fernandes, who's sort of playing in a number 10, but when they was sort of pressing, he was pressing with two. So Fernandes would go with Xerxes, leaving Mainu and Agate in midfield on their own. Garnacho and Rashford was wide. And all it took is for Spurs to go round the back, one pass, two pass, move the ball a little bit quicker, and then into midfield, and then they're away. I just can't believe what I'm seeing. And that to me just says, like, I don't know if it's lack of confidence. I don't know if it's lack of belief in the manager, but something is not right. No. When Ten Hag had a pop at you last year, Alan, and you questioned them about how their season went, and they finished 8th in this, you have every right to do that. And yes, it bought him a little bit of time because he won the FA Cup. They looked as though in the Community Shield that there was a better setup. Casemiro was playing well, controlling the midfield. Okay, they've got a base to go forward from. But we're still talking about the same things this season as last season. And slowly and surely, it looks as though it's getting worse, you know?
They're miles off.
And that's where honestly, you have to judge a team, isn't it?
Yeah, of course you judge.
In the league, because you play everybody and you
they're miles away.
Yeah.
They've got no identity.
And I always think, you look at the players, and there's a lot of talented players on that side. But
they've spent an absolute fortune, Gaz.
And they look like lost souls. Let me ask you this. Who of that 11 would get into a top 6 side in the Premier League?
Mainu gets in a top 6 side, definitely.
And I think Fernandes as well, for sure.
Fernandes when he's on song.
Rashford when he's at his best.
I would take Martinez as well. Obviously, he's been inconsistent with injuries and all that sort of thing. And that would be it, Alan, if I'm being totally honest.
I think you're being generous, by the way.
I think when players are a bit lost and not sure of their jobs and not sure of what the team is trying to achieve, what trying to do on the football pitch, it affects their performance. It affects their confidence. And you know what players are like. They need to know their role. They really need to know what they do in certain situations. And at the moment, it just, for quite some considerable time, it doesn't look like that they know their roles. And that surely comes down, to coaching.
Correct.
You two have been at the top of your game, certainly from the start and your prime and to the end. But I've been in a position, so to give some insight from a player who's been struggling, it's not that you're not trying. All these players are trying. I promise you that there's a breakdown between the player and the manager, the methods he's trying to teach. The players are not buying into what the manager is saying at this moment in time. The manager is finding it hard to get his point across. The manager is then defensive in interviews, and then it's almost like they're questioning the manager about what he's doing. Is he the right man for the job? And then you go to the training ground and everything is just flat. And what happens then, you go out on the pitch and you start performing for yourself. You're almost saying, okay, well, I'm going to go to the pitch and make sure I'm not the worst player. It's not the fact of you going out there and you're playing with freedom. I was at Aston Villa, which is a big club. So you talk about Man United, which is 10 times in terms of the scrutiny that they get. The players and the manager at this moment in time can't deal with the negativity surrounding the club.
Players will use anything as an excuse. You cannot allow a player to have a centimetre over an excuse. They need everything spelled out in front of them. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. We've all been there. We've all seen it. We've all done it. Yet, as soon as it came out in the summer that Man United was speaking to other managers, the manager was on a losing run.
It's hard to see him actually turning this round now, isn't it? I mean, he must be under terrible pressure, and who knows what the owners think? You never know. But
if they had found someone better or someone who was willing to take up the challenge, then he would have been gone. Therefore, they put him in an impossible situation.
But by the way, that's not fair to Ten Hag, by the way.
No, I
because
agree
you
with
talk
that.
about
Absolutely agree
players'
with that. Totally,
confidence. You talk about the managers. So basically, they admitted that they went and looked for someone. They couldn't find who they want. So you can do the job until the right man comes along. And that has got it's got to hurt deep inside. It's got to affect, we've all got egos to be in sport at the highest level. And that would have hurt his ego massively.
Having said all that, if he's signing a lot of those players for the money that they've signed for, then clearly a lot of them are not good enough for that football club.
Well, they spent 620 million. I think Ten Hag is something around that figure, I think.
Yeah, and he's worked with so many of those players at his previous club that are now at Man United.
We'll see what happens in the next few days, because there's going to be some fallout from that particular performance. But let's talk about Tottenham, because I can imagine their fans were listening and going, hang on a minute, what about us? What about us? And absolutely, I thought it was, they've had a slow start to the season, 4 points after 4, but they've won the last 2. And it's a thumping victory at Old Trafford is a great statement. I thought they do as what they do. They play front foot football. They go high. They're aggressive. They attack. I thought they were terrific. And Van de Ven's run for the first goal. I mean, wow. He's got
and
some
by
wheels.
the way, without their captain as well, who that would have been a huge blow for them. Yeah. Son. So, what about that run for the first goal? My God, how good was that? It was amazing. They were the miles a better team. Spurs were brilliant.
If it had been 5 or 6, you couldn't have complained.
Tactically looking at it, because Kulusevski, we know he can play along the front line, left, centre, right. But the fact he's gone with Johnson and Werner on your wings, Solanke up front, and sort of Kulusevski in that number 8 role, pops into the number 10 role, switches with Maddison. I just think it's a masterstroke, because a lot of managers there would have gone with a defensive mind, maybe gone with a Sarr in that position. But the fact he's gone with Kulusevski, who we know he can dribble very well. He can see a pass. He can shoot. He can score. All the good things. And I think those are the little bits that I think Ange needs a lot of credit for, because everyone talks about Spurs being kamikaze, the all or nothing. But he's got players into a system where the energy, like Werner had a couple of, I wouldn't say sitters,
one-on-ones.
but
one-on-ones,
for you guys, he should be putting them away, But it's the fact that the positions he's getting into is what I look at. If Son's in that position, it's probably two goals for him. But I just like that tactical sort of tweak that he's done. It allows the team to get really high, the press really well, win the ball back, dominate the ball as well. I thought the timing of the passing was really good from Spurs today. It's knowing when to quicken it up, knowing when to slow it down. I just thought Spurs were brilliant. And to have that performance at Old Trafford after a difficult start to the season, a manager sticking to his principles, brilliant win.
Bentancur's a player, He's a lovely foot. Wow. I know he's had his injury problems over the last couple of years, but he's, as in terms of in that sitting role there, he's just so calm. He's so good on the ball, so comfortable, isn't he, in possession? Yeah,
he was a really clever one, intelligent. It was a really good game from him. He played it really well.
I think Ipswich have had a reasonably good start to the season. I know none of the promoted clubs have still yet to win a football match in the Premier League, which is, quite something now. That's 6, 12, Southampton don't play 17 games without a victory. But Ipswich gave it a really good go, and 2 cracking finishes from Delap. He's a menace, isn't he?
I think they probably showed this weekend why we all probably feel that out of the promoted teams, they've got the best chance. Would you agree with that?
All 3 of them got a little bit more than last season's 3 that came up. I think Southampton, you can compare a little bit with Burnley in the way they play, but they're actually, their stats are really quite impressive, apart from sticking the ball in the net, and that's where I think they'll really struggle. Leicester, they've been close in every game. They've not yet won a match, but, to be honest, yesterday they were absolutely battered by Arsenal, but they defended really well for most of the game.
Apart from them passing out from the back.
But most teams, there's a couple of mistakes in there, but it's that, risk and reward kind of stuff. But that was a hell of a goal from Justin, though. I mean, ooh.
Guys, can you all tell me that? I mean, it was an amazing strike. It was a great volley. I mean, the technique was amazing, the way he had it on the fade. The obsession from teams with playing out from the back. I mean, did you see Chelsea and
Brighton? Chelsea, Brighton.
My God! Seriously,
it was quite fun, though.
It was madness, wasn't it?
Bonkers. It was absolute. Do you see how high the line was, Alan?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Without any pressure on the ball at all. I mean, they had a field day, Chelsea getting in behind them. So, we all know the high line works, but there is a certain point where if a man in midfield has got the ball and there's no defensive presence on him whatsoever,
Jesus, yeah.
and he can time the pass through. that's a striker's dream in terms of running behind, and that's
incredible.
Obviously Chelsea knew that and played to it, and they were brilliant at that. But that's kind of the game now, isn't it? That the teams do that. I think you've got to have the players to be able to do it, though, because you really need to be technically gifted right across your team, really, because if you've got one kind of weak link in that way of playing, you're going to struggle.
You can't blame the players for playing out from the back, because I think even from your time, Gary, then Alan's time, and then my time, the game is changed and it's always evolving. They want to play out. That's what they're being told to do. It's not like when we first was playing, it was kick the ball long and squeeze. It was a different tactic. Now they're basically being told to do that, even if they make mistakes. Yes, for us pundits, it's bonkers. It was a great game for us to watch. We was absolutely loving it. But that is the strategy, that using the goalkeeper as an extra man, going into midfield and then missing out their midfield, getting it to the striker and then trying to get the second ball. So I get it. It looks stupid when it fails, but I understand why the players are doing it.
Yeah, because if they can beat the press, then obviously you've got half the team out, and you've got a real chance. So I think they obviously evaluate the situation and think it's worth that because we've got more chance of scoring. I know you're anti it, Alan, but
I'm not anti. I'm just anti when it's absolutely in a crazy situation.
Yeah,
no, you have to look at the position you're in and the situation you're in and think, right, this is not the right time to pass out. Yeah, I see so many teams. Yesterday was a great example of it. That game at Chelsea was just mad.
Well, the first half was extraordinary.
Sorry, before we move on quickly, I just want to say with Ipswich, because we sort of skipped by them, I thought the left back Davis was outstanding today. I thought he defended well. I thought his delivery was brilliant. Jack Clark as well. Do you remember him? He went to Spurs, dead young from Leeds. Yeah. And then he went to Sunderland, got his games up, did really well, got his move, and now he's playing Premier League football on a consistent basis. We've mentioned Delap with the goals, former academy graduate at Manchester City. So good to see him doing so well. Hutchinson, we spoke about earlier on in the season, very good technically, dribbles in behind. And Ogbene, who was seen at Luton last season, obviously that they've signed him. So they've got some really interesting players, a lot of players with a lot to prove in the Premier League, and they're exciting watch.
Yeah, it'd be an amazing achievement if they did stay up, to go from back-to-back promotions to do that. But they've certainly got something, and terrific atmosphere there at Portman Road when they're playing. I think the fans are absolutely loving their football. There's no question McKenna's got something as a coach. It's obvious from what he's done.
Have you seen enough from your team, Leicester, at Arsenal to suggest that you think they may have a chance of staying up?
2-2 after 94 minutes, you would say that's an amazing achievement. But in reality, it was.
How good was the keeper, by the way?
It was amazing. He made 4 or 5 absolutely world-class point-blank saves. He was brilliant. But you don't really judge Leicester on the game at Arsenal, really, because it's the next 4 fixtures for Leicester are all against teams that are in a similar area. So I think we'll learn a little bit more from that. But none of the promoted teams are getting whacked, which is unlike last season, Sheffield United in particular, of course, and Burnley at times, quite frequently as well. They're not getting whacked. So, I look at Leicester and I think they've got a spirit, they've got a togetherness, they've got talent. There's some good players in there. So it's going to be tough. And I was saying to the boys, my lads today, they're all Leicester fans, except for George. But they were all saying that, it was so much more fun in the Championship. Because, you start the season and it's the same for Ipswich and obviously the same for Southampton. You're thinking, our target is to survive. And it's not that much fun. Not as much fun as in the Championship, where you actually win a lot of football matches and you're thinking about success rather than avoiding failure.
So you won't be too disappointed when you get relegated, then it'll be all right.
I still don't want them to get relegated because you don't, do you? Of course you don't. You want them to win football matches. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for all 3 of those teams. But, we can't not talk about Cole Palmer. We've done it many times, but
wow.
Of all the talented players that England have got, and there is an abundance of talent, he might just be the best of the lot, He makes it look so easy. Theo Walcott, whose first time on the Saturday night match of the day, kind of made the comparison with Dennis Bergkamp. And normally you'd go, "God, blimey, hang on a minute, whoa." But I see there are similarities there in the way he glides across the pitch, his vision, his skill, his finishing. What a talent. And he just seems to be completely fearless as well. It just seems water off a duck's back, however big the game or anything like that. And the free kick, wow.
Sensational. I think his first half was it 2 disallowed, hit the post and 4 goals?
First player ever to score 4 in the first half.
Oh my God, it's like ridiculous. What a talent. Absolutely outstanding. And he should have had a 5th one, shouldn't he, in the second half? So
yeah, I think he might have been offside with that, actually.
Unbelievable.
But it's not just the goals, is it? It's the little passes, the little sideways. He can hit long balls, he can hit through balls. He's got the lot. The
best compliment you can pay him is the fact that he's doing it in a team which has so much uncertainty. If you look at Chelsea... Particularly last season. He scored 22 Premier League... 22! Just think about that. Do you remember the greats of the Premier League, the Ryan Giggses and all that? They never would have scored 20. And I know it's different. Wingers were different back then. It was more about crossing and all that. But he was in forward areas. Cole Palmer can play on the right and in central areas. Jolien mentioned about playing a little bit deep. He can play anywhere. And I think that's what separates him from the rest. I think he can have an effect on the game from whatever position he's playing. He's had more goals and assists combined since the start of last season. Correct. Than any other player. And that includes obviously Haaland, who scores hundreds of goals. So, that's quite an achievement for a young man, particularly, as you said, Michael, last season in a side that was a little bit all over the shop and struggling, because that is a true test, because we've talked about Manchester United earlier on. They've been a mess for a while now, and I think players have suffered for that. I wouldn't particularly judge United's players individually at the moment because I think they're a little bit lost. Whereas Chelsea, despite that last season, despite them going through all their struggles, but having said that, they've started this season really well and encouraging under Maresca, but despite last season, he still had those numbers and brilliant performances.
I thought Newcastle did okay, Alan. I think Pep, I heard his press conference after the game, and he eulogised over the way Eddie Howe's teams play, that they play high, and he was very respectful towards Eddie Howe's managerial skills and coaching skills. So, you'd have probably taken that beforehand. But we've got to clear one thing up, because obviously we mentioned you last night on the show, Alan, about because you went on X or Twitter and said you didn't think it was a penalty. On our group chat, you thought it was a dive. Do you still think that?
Well, first of all, I think it was Newcastle's best performance of the season. Definitely. I thought their energy was back, their pressing was back from what we looked at last season and the season before. Everything about Newcastle and Eddie was all about the intensity and overpowering teams. And that hasn't happened this season, but it happened yesterday, and it was the best performance of the season, and a draw was a fair result, there's no doubt. So I was really impressed with what they did. But in terms of the penalty decision, if that happened at the other end, at the Gallagher end, against Newcastle, I'd be going mad. And the Newcastle fans would be going mad also. If you look at Anthony Gordon's touch to take it around the goalkeeper, it was a really poor touch, and he wasn't getting to the ball. So all of a sudden, you've got a split second. You've got to make a decision straight away, and that's what he did. I've been there. I've done it. I've been in that situation, and you think, oh, fuck, I've messed up. My touch is that bad. How am I going to make this into a positive situation? And he turned it into a penalty. Look, everyone does it.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. So I'm not knocking him at all. I'm not criticising him at all. I'm just looking at the referees and everyone else to say, hang on, come on.
I always think, though, when you run at that pace and you know that a goalkeeper is coming out, in your thoughts is, if I can get it past him, but you always do know when you've had a little bit of a heavy touch. But, and I've heard you say it before, we don't have to jump out the way of goalkeepers. You can, just keep your feet low. And it's up to the goalkeeper to get a touch. If the goalkeeper doesn't get the ball, then, it's like you sliding in, because they come in at a pace at you. And I think there was a little bit, he made sure he got a little bit of contact. So I understand your point of view, but at the same time, I think you've got to say, if the goalkeeper doesn't get there, if he comes out.
What about the other one that wasn't given? It was far more of a penalty. The Kyle Walker one on Joe Linton, 10 or 15 minutes later, that wasn't given, was far more of a penalty than the one, the Anthony Gordon.
Did you?
Yeah, but they were never going to get it, because the other one was 50-50, that the one he gave. So they were never going to give the other one. Cool, I did, yeah. So if your argument is the contact, okay, well, there's contact. Kyle Walker made contact with Joe Linton to stop him getting the ball. So why wasn't that a penalty? What about Big Dan Burn? He's the only one that stopped Erling Haaland.
Well, I know.
So far. He's due a off game, wasn't he?
Yeah, we all have those. No Rodri, first time, and it wasn't.
Bit flat, weren't they?
A little bit. We can't read too much into that just yet, but,
I don't think it was down to Rodri, though. I just think Man City were sloppy. I think Gundogan playing a little bit further forward didn't really help.
He had a poor game, though, didn't he? He had a poor game, didn't he?
He had a poor game. I think Gundogan's better at receiving the ball off the back four, playing it to Ireland, and then trying to get in the box. He's played that position before and done really well in a 10 at times, but the balance wasn't right for me.
What about Pep's comments with Mikel about before the game, if you want to go to war and all that? It's not often you hear Pep, is it, having the pop back?
For context, Arteta said something like, I've been at that club before, I know what they do, or it was left out in the open. He didn't explain what he meant. And he wasn't talking, that could have been, is he talking about the charges with Manchester City? It could have gone in absolutely any direction. So
he's subsequently come out and says how much he loves Pep and how making peace. They're making peace. But you're going to get that rivalry with two clubs that's quite, they're so close. They've been close in the league certainly last season. And I suspect it might be pretty close affair. Can Liverpool join the two of them as genuine title favourites? They obviously won at Wolves. It wasn't their most scintillating performance of the season, but they did enough. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good result without playing well, but that has to be a good sign, doesn't it? Without playing well and getting the right result. Yeah, I think Liverpool won't. I don't think they'll be far away. I think that they've got a really good squad. I think the manager's been really impressive in everything that he's done, even after the defeat at home to Forest. I think in the way he spoke, the way he understood it, the way he didn't panic. I think, I've been really impressed with him. Have you?
Oh, absolutely. I think I always thought it would be incredibly difficult, and I'm sure it is, coming in after someone like Jurgen Klopp, who's been so dominant to the football club and such a massive personality. And don't forget, he's got all his staff and all that, and then you have to change everything. And for some, for players in those positions, it's like, oh, well, we don't normally do that. Why is he doing this in training? We don't, it's very easy for players to slip down that, but he's clearly gained the respect of the players immediately. Yep. They've bought into a slightly different style of playing. They're not probably as thrilling to watch as they often were up to now, as they were in Klopp, but they kind of build up a little more slowly. I don't know whether you would agree, but they're getting the results, and ultimately that's what really counts.
I think just tactically for Liverpool, because Szoboszlai is playing in that number 10 role, I think if Liverpool want to challenge all the way, I think his numbers are going to have to be 10 goals, 10 assists this season, realistically. I know Salah will get goals. Diaz has been in red-hot form. But even just the way Jota moves, it's sort of like they're sacrificing all the good of him. Because I like Jota, but I prefer Jota off the left. But Diaz is playing so well. I think Szoboszlai in that free role, he's got to get goals because he gets in good positions and then third man runs. And I just think if he can get the goals, then they can challenge.
Do you think they can challenge, Alan?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I think I've been really impressed with them. I know they want a midfielder, but I think that's probably been one of their strengths in the first few games in terms of Gravenberch, and I think he's been outstanding, hasn't he?
Everyone was raving about Gravenberch, wasn't they? I thought the game was a little bit flat at times. I agree with Gary, the slower build-up, because we're so used to end-to-end. We were spoiled with that, but I think it's a bit more considered. It's more about timing. But the midfield, McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai seem to be working up to now.
And a win for the other side on Merseyside.
Whoa.
Finally. I mean, they struggled in the first half, but...
The pressure on them after going 1-0 down, I mean, and they got away with it. I thought it was a terrible decision. I mean, Palace should have had another penalty.
Yeah.
It was a Tarkowski challenge, wasn't it, on Mateta?
Was. Reckless, wasn't it?
And that might have made it 2-0 if it had been given a penalty. I thought it was a terrible challenge, but they got away with it. But the second half, I think Sean Dyche made a couple of changes and Harrison came on and McNeil got a couple of goals.
The difference a goal makes. They come out after 45 minutes, obviously under the cosh, and then McNeil bends that one in the top. Fantastic goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a huge win for Everton, a massive win.
I just think with Everton, I wasn't worried for Everton because they know they've got the great determination come from Sean Dyche. If you actually watch their games this season, they've played very well. I was at their game against Brighton, the first half, they should have been 2 or 3 up. We had the Bournemouth game where there was 2-0 up and then it was late goals. And they're finding a way to score. And if they can just get they've got Braithwaite back now, who's been out, Everton will be fine.
I think they've found the secret, and that's letting the other team take the lead rather than go ahead themselves.
Don't go 2-0 up first, yeah.
I spoke to Sean Dyche down the line after the game, for our interview for Match of the Day, and I think you could feel the kind of relief. And also new ownership possibly coming in this week, which, all of a sudden the world's a slightly better place for fans of Everton. One other mention because he's a pod favourite and he was also someone we worked with in the summer, Cesc Fabregas.
Yes.
3 wins on the bounce now. They won again. They won again today.
I didn't see that. Tell me what happened, Dad. What they win today, did they?
They won, yeah. They won.
Yeah, 3-2.
3-2. Yeah, against Verona. So, they won away at Atalanta last week. So they're now halfway. They're in 10th in the table. So
Brilliant.
Remarkable stuff. I'm not surprised, though. I'm not surprised. He's just got a vision and he's got an intelligence for the game. So, and if you haven't heard that podcast I did with Cesc Fabregas, it'll just scroll down. You'll find it. It's really interesting. We did 2 episodes, and I think you'll enjoy it. So give that a listen. But for this episode of The Rest is Football, that's it. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Have a great week.